So you're pulling. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is that what you listen to? Yeah, that's yes. 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 Excellent.
Okay.
That's what you listen to when you're coding. kind of calms you down. Yeah.
Yes, no.
Have you heard about that? I think it's a recent where they released a song. It's just music,
Okay. So
but it is supposed to reduce anxiety by 65%.
Is that the one you sent out?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You put it. Was it in?
It's resources.
It's, oh, yeah. It's you. You put it there, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But you, like my daughter, my younger one works always with classical music.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
she knows the trick already. Okay.
So, I was looking at the stuff that we did on Tuesday.
Okay.
Do we have
I thought it was two. Yeah.
the solved version of the constructor to class?
Constructor to
Oh
class.
wait, that's the book one. Sorry, not that one. The other one, with the one with the vehicles.
Are you talking about the homework or the
The what? Sorry.
homework or the activity?
No, the last, like basically the last activity that we did.
Uh huh. So it's missing something. What is it?
No, I was just looking for because I know you said that you had all the solved stuff on there.
Yeah.
I didn't see.
It's not there.
Yes, I. Did you get another version?
Activities.
Because that was what number
This one.
10?
10.
Was it 10?
Yeah. So right. This is the solved one. Again, remember, if you see the require, what does this tell you? Require means this is written in Node.js. Remember in the beginning of the class, I was saying that the examples are written in Node.js, but we can easily convert them into ES6 because these should be able to run in your browser, and that's what I showed you. So all you have to do is create a HTML, create an index.js, and then export this class. Remove the require. Require doesn't work. Remove the require. Export this class, and then export vehicle, and then your index.js import this, and it should work. You're going to import car. And all this stuff, line number 14 to 19, you can move these into your index.js, and these should run in your index.js.
Yes.
Yeah, good. Again, HTML.
Just because I was getting an error when I did that, but I guess
Yeah.
they were saying that I had to get rid of the require up there.
Well, this code is not being. Remember, that's what I was saying because this is written in Node.js and ES6 runs in browser. We all have 75 Chrome version 75, so there's no reason that we should be using this in Node.js. So yeah, require doesn't work in JavaScript.
That's what was giving me the error.
Yeah. So you have to remove this, put an export over here, and then do the same thing with vehicle. Then create your index.html, index.js, and then import car class over there. And then remove these methods over there. And remember in your HTML, you have to put type is equal to module. Yeah, otherwise not going to work. Yeah.
On Tuesday when we but then because I got to you know how I was saying like I heard that like sometimes like you kind of get on the spot.
All right. Good evening. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. React is here finally. Okay. This is what you guys have been waiting for. Here it is. Hopefully, everybody went back and kind of looked at ES6 because if you didn't, this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to try to kind of revisit those concepts as we go through React. But again, please make sure the more important ones are the class and the extends one. Make sure you go through them. Arrow functions, let and const, extremely important. But I think everybody knows that pretty well. Okay. There is one thing that got left on Tuesday, but that's not a big deal. It's called destructuring. When we get to, I think it's on Saturday. I can explain. It's a really small thing. It's not a big deal. Okay. Anybody tried to create a React app yet?
Yeah.
1, 2, excellent. Were you guys successful? Were you able to run up?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What did you use? How did you create the app?
NPM creates React app.
NPM.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Facebook gives you like a template of everything. And
Yeah. But is it NPM or is it NPX? NPX.
NPX.
Yeah. Did you use the same one?
Yeah, I was just following the getting started documentation in React, and it makes you.
Yes.
It
NPX.
walks you through making that tic-tac-toe game.
Okay. Yeah. But you use the NPX and created everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Excellent. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with React. So today we'll do the basic introduction. All right. So today, in my opinion, React is set to become the jQuery of our time. I've said this before. 15 years from now, future web developers are making websites from Mars or somewhere, right? They will look back and they will be like, oh my God, this is legacy React that I need to convert the code from. So this is where React is heading. And React is from Facebook, came around the same time as AngularJS did, but unfortunately, AngularJS, Google made a stupid mistake, and it's probably done and dusted by now. I mean, AngularJS is still there; they are releasing versions, but React kind of took over. And if I haven't shared the story, it was between the versions. Angular 1 came out, and it was going to take over, and that was set to become this is going to be the gold standard for web development. Then they came out with Angular 2, and that kind of just took the whole framework down. People didn't like it. Everybody moved on. React took over it. So right now, this is one of the more popular ones, and you will see a lot of companies moving towards it. Okay. Now React over the years, if you were doing this 2 years ago, React was known to have a learning curve. It still has it, but they have done a really good job in getting you up and started, create a React app. Couple of years ago, even a year ago, you had to do a lot of configurations. If anybody tried this like 2 years ago, it was horrible. I've done that and it was confusing. But in today, there's just like one line, as Jay was saying, Michael was saying, just like one command and your React app is created. They've done a great job in coming to that point. We'll take a look at it and we'll see what all it does. Okay. All right. Again, remember the foundation. The foundation is still JavaScript. All right. JavaScript is here. I don't think it's going away. But just like jQuery came, when jQuery came, it took the world by storm. There was like, okay, this is the gold standard. Angular came, now React is here. Again, the more important part is that we learn from the concepts what React brings to the table. So the concept and the architecture that React has introduced is really important. Okay, again, that concept, somebody will take it over, make it even better. So that will come and go, but the concept is really important. What the foundation React is laying. Okay, so again, your foundation should be JavaScript. You should be really good at JavaScript. Everything else is bonus. All right. Let's see. So what is React? React is open source JavaScript library. Important point to note over here: it's a library. It's not a framework. All right. So basically, a library, just like jQuery, it is wrapping something. It is giving some wrapper functions behind the scene. It is still JavaScript. Okay. All right. Now it is open source. Extremely important. You can go to GitHub. I think the number one starred GitHub repository is React. It's number one and number two. So they have the source code out there. If anybody is interested, you can go and look at it. It's again the most followed GitHub repository on GitHub. Again, why we'll look at the second point, how it has made single page applications extremely easy to make, and that's how it has become more popular. Third one is really important. I'll come to the third one. Everybody understand when I say single page applications? All right, single page applications are basically your content. Remember handlebars and all that stuff? Those are all single page applications. So you only see one page, right? And if anything is changing, it's the content in between, whatever is changing. Okay. The third one, component based. This is what React is really good at, and this is the more important concept. Basically, what it means is React aims to break down your UI, your web page into components, right? Everything in React is component. If you are not making components in React, you're doing it the wrong way. I'll be honest, I have seen some apps that kind of they use React just for the name, but behind the scenes, the mindset is still like a whole web page is reloading and all this stuff is not broken down. React is component based, so again, we need to think into components. How can I break down my big web page into components, into smaller components? If this is my web page, then I have a header, and this is kind of borrowing from handlebars also. If I have a header, then I have some some content over here. Then I have a paragraph or something. Then I have a footer. So each one of these, we need to treat them as a component. Okay. So I'm going to say this is component. This is a component. This is a component. This is a component. This is a component. So that's what React is really good about, breaking down your web page into components. Okay. Again, this is the same example that I'm giving over here. So if this is the web page of Facebook, basically we can see that these are all broken down into multiple components. And it can be as small as you want. I would suggest making these components smaller, like each one of these kind of in a separate component. If you look at this example, it's kind of similar. The search bar is a component, this list is a component, and within the list, the items are also like components. They are repeating components. Basically, you just create one component and you kind of reuse them. Okay? Again, these are not individual components. These are kind of repeating components. So you will only create one component and then kind of repeat them, just like in a for each. Okay? Reusability. And what is the advantage of that? If I just want to change the font of this one, it's going to change the font of everything. So what components gives us is the reusability part. That I write my component once, and I can reuse this component anywhere else in my website, and I don't have to write extra code for it. That's why it is really important. Logically decompose UI into unique parts. I already talked about it. Easy reuse. That's the power of components. As remember the dry principle that I keep talking about. All right, this is why it is important. And then even in JavaScript, in jQuery, ES6 we saw, you see how I like to break down everything. Everything should be like in a different file. It should belong in a different file. I know a lot of people, especially new programmers, kind of hate it. Why am I just doing like one file? I don't want to import, export, and get into that hole. But this is really important. And over here, there's no choice. That's what React aims for. You have to distribute them into different components, and all your components are going to come together and create a web page for you. And that's what React aims for. If you're not using React in that way, then you're kind of defeating the purpose. If you read the documentation, that's what React is. It's a component-based UI JavaScript framework. All right, it's in the name. Easier to test. I know we haven't done a lot of testing, and there's not a separate lesson for testing and all that stuff, but it is easier to test. Why is it? Now, if you see, you have like your individual components. Now you're going to just test this component, and if there's an issue, you will fix it over here. Next, you will just test this component, fix it, and move on. Okay? Versus if this was one big web page, and then you're trying to test this in the same file, in the same format. You cannot like just test one of these. Okay? Helps you find bugs and saves time. If you understand the first three, the fourth one kind of makes sense, that if I have individual components, I know exactly where to go and where to look and what to change and how to fix it. Okay? Any questions on this? Everybody convinced on the component part? Okay? All right.
Don't all these components take up a lot of space?
Take up a lot of space. Define space. Where do they take up space?
In your code. I mean, so you have a mainline program, which is probably a server, then you have all these components attached to it.
So components are just files. I mean, it's the same code that you're going to write in a big file. You're taking those 5 lines and putting in a different component. There's no difference in bytes if you mean you're saving space. It doesn't really make anything. Right. That's what I'm saying. That if versus he's saying doesn't component take more space. I'm saying the components, if you put it in one big file, you're just taking those 5 lines in code and creating a new component as a separate file. So you still have those lines and those things over there anyway. Right. That's what I was saying. Define space. What do you mean by space? It's the
I know I heard myself when I said that.
right. I mean the advantage that comes with this definitely overrides that. Yeah. Again, the question would be if I make too many components, would it be confusing or that could be it. That I can see that maybe you have like extremely small components. That I can see it being an issue. But again, it has nothing to do with space. It has to do more like somebody who's working on a website. How do you maybe they are more granular, right? That's the only thing. But I don't think there's anything like a really small component. You will see when we get to it. They're like more logical and kind of make sense what should be a component. Okay. All right. So jQuery. So now what, if you go back and see this, it says data shifting applications. Basically, this means that your web page is interactive. Your web page is changing. Okay. Now, when I talk about, if I just say your web page is changing, you can interact with it. There's some actions that happen that kind of change your page. What am I talking about? What am I modifying? The DOM. Excellent. Everybody remember? I'm modifying the DOM. That's the only way to change a web page, right? And how do we modify the DOM? Basic JavaScript. You can use JavaScript to do it. Then we learn jQuery, which does the same thing, right? It modifies the DOM, and that's why it becomes more interactive. React is the same way. React is also doing the same thing. It is modifying your DOM, basically. It does it in a different way, in a more efficient way, but in the end, it is modifying your DOM. Okay, so that's the conclusion that the only way to interact or change your website, make it more interactive, is modifying the DOM. There's no other way. Okay, now you can use either plain old JavaScript, the vanilla JavaScript, or you can use jQuery, or you can use React. But all of these are modifying the DOM. Okay, now what React does is React modifies your DOM in an extremely efficient way that makes it a lot faster than jQuery. All right, so what happens is, if you look at the first diagram, jQuery, if you're modifying the DOM, jQuery kind of like directly interacts with the DOM. Like the real, whatever the DOM is, if you make a change, it will go and modify the DOM. Okay, that's what you have learned, right? You use your dollar, you use your click functions and all that function in jQuery, and it just goes ahead and modifies the DOM, right? In every change, anything that happens, if it is requiring to change the DOM, it will just go ahead and change the DOM. Okay, simple. That's what jQuery does. React does something different. What React does is, instead of directly modifying the DOM, React creates another DOM in memory, and it's called virtual DOM or VDOM. Virtual DOM. Okay, as you see on the screen, there is something in the middle which resides between the DOM and actually whatever the commands are coming, your event handlers. Okay, now bottom line is, I'll go through the virtual DOM, but this concept, this is what makes React really fast in updating the DOM. And this makes jQuery a lot, compared to React, a lot slower because they are modifying the DOM directly. And I'll go through why it happens. One thing to note is the concept of virtual DOM is not coming from Facebook, it's not coming from React. It's not new that they invented. This concept has always been there. It's more like a design pattern. What they did good was they actually took it, implemented it, and they implemented it extremely well. That's the credit for React, right? But the concept that you should have something in the middle and to make it faster, you update this and then you update this. This has been there for some time, and it's more like a design pattern. Somebody suggested, it has been there, it has been worked. What React did was actually take it, implement it, and implement it really well. Okay, so virtual DOM concept has been there. It's not something that Facebook or React invented. All right. So the concept of virtual DOM is there's something that resides between your event handlers and your DOM, and you update the virtual DOM instead of directly updating the DOM. Okay. Now what happens is anything that is changing, it goes ahead and updates the virtual DOM, and this virtual DOM is in memory. Okay. Now once this has been updated, okay, so going back to jQuery, what happens in jQuery is when you update something, it goes ahead and updates the DOM. Now when you update the DOM, the whole thing kind of gets updated. All right, so that takes time. DOM, if you guys remember, is basically a tree data structure. They are kind of divided into the tree. All elements are coming together. So when you update something directly to the DOM, it will kind of refresh your whole page. All right. What React does is it updates the virtual DOM, and then it has some algorithms that go and check what is the most efficient and the quickest way to update the DOM without like refreshing the whole thing. Okay. Let's see. What? All right. Now this is how it works. So this is the real DOM. Okay. And then this is the in-memory DOM, which is the virtual DOM. Now something in the DOM changes. Let's suppose this is your element, that this is the only change you're making in your DOM, right? It could be a p tag, could be a div, anything, all right? Again, remember when I talked about DOM in a month ago, 2 months ago, I explained that this is like dividing the tree structure. So what it means is if you have your HTML tag, then comes your p tag, there's a div, and then there might be h1s, whatever. So it's kind of, this is how the DOM is structured. It's kind of like a tree structure, okay? Now, let's suppose you are making an update over here, right? So what React does is it updates the virtual DOM, all right? And then React is going to go ahead and compare this, your in-memory DOM, with the actual one. And then it's going to find out what's the difference. What was updated? It's not going to directly update the DOM. Once it finds out what the difference was, that's where React is good at. It has an algorithm that goes ahead and finds what's the fastest way, like what's the quickest way that it can update with making smallest number of changes to this DOM. Instead of updating the whole thing, I need to update this small piece. Now they kind of go ahead and calculate and kind of find out that what's the fastest way to update this without actually updating the whole thing. That's what they're good at, and that's what makes it extremely fast. All right. So now compared to jQuery, when there's an update, what happens? It directly updates the DOM, and it updates the whole thing. Right. Your code goes ahead. It goes ahead. It updates your all your JavaScript, your HTML, your CSS, and then kind of reloads the whole page, and that's why you see your page reloaded. Okay. In React, they update. They talk to the middle layer, which is called a virtual DOM. Okay, and they make all your updates to the virtual DOM. All these updates coming to your virtual DOM, and then the React algorithm kind of goes ahead and says, okay, what's the smallest, what's the quickest way? What are the changes that I can go ahead and update the real DOM? Okay, instead of doing the whole page. And that's the concept of virtual DOM, and that's what they're good at, and that's what makes React extremely fast compared to jQuery or vanilla JavaScript. Okay? Questions? Yes.
So does it just save like a caching version, I guess, of the website and the virtual DOM, and then so it can always load it faster?
Right. So those are the nitty-gritty details. I'm exactly not sure. They do have a white paper out there. You can go and see that what exactly algorithm they're running. It's probably caching and a lot more stuff that they try to determine what's the smallest number of changes that it will take to update the DOM. But that's kind of more like the part of the algorithm. I'm pretty sure it's open source. We can go ahead and read up on the details to see what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I mean, especially
Right.
with that. The diagram that you showed, it just speeds up the loading of the page.
Right. Instead of updating the whole thing, we are just updating some parts of the DOM. Okay. the advantages we can see again. I said it's super fast in updating the DOM. Let's see. Any question on the pros? Anything that stands out that you don't understand? What are the pros of? I'll go through the cons.
So it's kind of like source control for the DOM.
Source control for the DOM.
Yeah,
Kind
like
of.
merging
Yes.
our branch into the
Oh, that's
DOM.
interesting. I never thought. Yeah. What happens if there's a conflict?
Slow.
I don't know what to update.
You just divide by 0. It's okay.
All right. Any question on the pros? All right. The cons part. Again, I said React is not like a framework. It's a library. Okay. Since it is a library, it is what they say is that it's a UI library, right? It's a view library. That's what they say. That's what React is. It has to do with the UI. It has to do with the browser. Whatever you see on your browser, that's the React part, right? The disadvantage is since it's not a framework, they don't have anything built in to make AJAX requests and all that stuff. Again, it's kind of hidden from us because once you create your React app, they are using a lot of third-party libraries to kind of give us this. But if it's a basic pure React, it's not part. None of this is part of React. React again, what is part of React is basically your UI components, updating DOM and all that stuff. But making HTTP requests and all that stuff, it's not part of React. So for that, we need to find some third-party libraries, kind of include them in React and make those requests. Again, today it's still easier because React kind of comes built in with some of this stuff. If you're interested, we'll create a React app, but if you have already done it, open the node modules folder and see how many, like hundreds of libraries, how many, yeah, right?
It was put out, right?
Yeah, they are importing like, I don't know, like 100 libraries or something. Yeah, it takes a while to create that app. Okay. Again, the same thing can require more configuration. If you're using some third-party libraries, you need to understand how to use those libraries. Okay. But again, as I said, if you were doing this 2 years ago, you'll have to mess around. I have messed around with some of this stuff. And when they said that React has a learning curve, it did have a learning curve. And you had to understand a few more things before you can actually go to the React part. Okay? All right, questions? Everybody good? So when I talk about the concept, this is what React is. These are the concept, the component-based and the virtual DOM. These are the two important concepts, and that's what are the building blocks of React. Okay? After that, it's all coding, and we'll see how to come up with how to code React and what are the standards that they follow. That's all there. But the two concepts are virtual DOM and then the component based. Okay, that's what basically React is. All right. Anybody heard about Webpack?
Yeah.
What is Webpack? What do you think?
Modularized front-end code.
Other than reading from.
That's
Yeah.
my
Were you going to say the same thing?
No, I just always do that.
All right. What is Webpack? What do you think
So I
Webpack is?
got the idea that you can only install it.
Yes.
It's open source.
I've just heard it used along with like Babel and NPM, like
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing.
Okay. That's not same kind of thing, but it is used in collaboration with something. Webpack itself is like a standalone thing. Michael, what do you think of Webpack?
What's your pack of web?
It's actually pretty true. Yeah. So again, Webpack has nothing to do with React. I mean, React uses Webpack. If you were, again, as I said, if you're doing React a couple of years ago, you would have to understand Webpack. You would have to configure Webpack, kind of import Webpack into your React library. But in today, once we create an app, we'll go through the structure, we'll open up our package JSON, and we'll see that Webpack and all this stuff is already included. So Webpack basically, as the name said, it kind of helps you configure your assets, your JavaScript files, and it kind of bundles them together. That's what Webpack does. Again, it's not as important to understand Webpack in today's world because it's already built in for you. React already handles it. But again, I think this kind of older part when we had to configure all this stuff, these module exports and everything. And today, it's already there in React. Basically, but it bundles all your front end code into one and kind of transports. That's what you deploy. That's what get deploys on your Heroku or any hosting site, and that's what goes into your browser. You'll just see like one small file with a bunch of junk characters. So Webpack is kind of helping you get that. We'll take a look at in a little bit more detail. But Webpack, I think it's not as important. The more important part is the Babel. You mentioned Babel. Ali, do you know what Babel is?
No.
All right.
I just know about it.
Well, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It's like a JavaScript compiler that takes
Yes.
it takes JSX and turns it into
Yes. Exactly. So Babel is, again, it has nothing to do with particularly React. It is a third party that exists on its own. Remember when we talked about ES5 and ES6, and I said ES5 is 100% supported, right? But the code that we are writing is in ES6, and there are two more versions, ES7 and ES8. So ES6 itself is not even 100% covered by all browsers. So forget about ES7 and ES8, all right? But ES6, we learned ES6. It brings up some really good coding standards and some properties that we would like to use. Babel comes to your rescue. What Babel does is basically any code that you write in ES6, ES7, ES8, it takes that code, converts into ES5, and then sends it to your browser because your browser can only 100% understand ES5 right now. Okay? That's what Babel does. It transpiles your ES6, ES7, ES8 code into ES5. That's what it does, and then send it to your browser. And why that is important? Because your browser, every browser 100% understands ES5. Okay, and that's the reason Babel exists. Once your browser 100% understands ES6, this won't be required. Once it 100% understands ES7, then this won't be required, and so on and so forth. Yes?
Is it more or less not about like the current browsers being able to understand ES6, but being more backwards compatible to older browsers?
Yeah.
If you're not on the latest versions, like you're on
Right.
XP still.
Yeah. So somebody opens your website on a different browser which is not supported, then your website basically won't render. Yeah.
But all the current browsers are up to date
With ES5. ES5 is guaranteed to work, so that's why. Yeah. But ES6 code is not guaranteed, and forget about ES6. Right. Chrome will render probably all of them. Again, the latest version of Chrome. But other browsers who your users are on a different browser version, especially the corporate world, right? They kind of take time to get to the latest version. Not every time the latest version is available. So that's why your website won't be able to render in some of the older browsers. All right. Again, Babel, that's the concept. You don't have to configure Babel. Again, as I said, if you were doing this 2 years ago, you would have to configure this. But today, React already has built in. So it takes care of all this stuff for you. Okay. Again, if you come across this, the keywords are Babel. It's a third-party library. Transpile. Transpile means take your code and convert into a code that your browser can understand. Right. In other languages, it's all called a compiler. Compiler does the job, but since your JavaScript doesn't basically compile, this is the word that they use, transpile. Okay. All right. Oops. Questions. Everybody understand the concept? Okay. Now the next slide you saw is CDN. Since it's a JavaScript library, just like jQuery, there should be a CDN. It is there, but you don't want to use it because it's going to be extremely slow. We'll create a React app just with one line, and you will see how many libraries it is importing. Imagine these libraries coming over internet in CDN. It's crazy. So that's why it is there, but it's a bad practice to use it. It's just going to make it slow. All right. Before we move on to the coding part, do you guys have any questions? Understand where React is coming from? The concepts, again, remember component based and virtual DOM. Babel, what's the function of Babel? Why is it required? Why does React use it? Difference between ES6, ES5, those are basically your JavaScript versions. Okay? Questions? Everybody good? Excited to start React?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Nick or Troy, can you go ahead and Slack out the exercise number 14? All right, so exercise 14 kind of asks you guys to look at the documentation and answer some of these questions. Before you start, I want to tell you guys something. All right, so the first thing you see over here is the suggestion is do this, don't do this. If you Google global install create React app, it takes you the website of React and they say please don't do this. All right, what they are suggesting is instead do the npx. All right, so go into the documentation and see the initial tutorial, but basically you have to do npx, okay, and then create dash react dash app, and then you give your app a name. All right, I'll go through these steps after this exercise, but this is what you have to do. Again, the reason they are saying is if you do npm install global this thing, it will install this application on your machine. All right, everybody understand what global does, right? It installs the package. It will install the package, and the advantage of this is if you want to create an app, you will do create React app and then give your app name. Always. This is if you want to create a new app, this is what you will do. Your command line, it will understand this. Why? Because you are doing a global install. But the problem with this is every time the React updates their boilerplate code or anything, this won't have that update. But this thing actually goes and connects to their thing and makes sure that whatever you're getting is the latest thing. So that's why they're saying, please go ahead and use this, don't use this. Once you do this, it's installed on your computer and that's where it's isolated now. It's not connecting to anything. But this in npx goes ahead, actually make sure that you're getting the latest code, the latest boilerplate code, and that's what it installs. And that's why it creates an application. All right? Again, one more time, basically just use npx to create your React apps. All right, don't do the global install. If you did, go ahead and uninstall it and then start using this one. All right, again, look at the documentation. They will say npx, this is the what you need to do, and then you have to give a name for it. All right, take a few minutes, look at these questions, answer them, and then we'll go ahead and create a React app. Yes. Oh, it's trying to create the React app.
I had to uninstall and then put that one.
Okay.
I already filled with it.
But again, if anytime you guys come across something and then you look at the this is for me the source of truth is always the official documentation, right? And how did I find this out? I saw this and then I was like, well, the documentation says npx. Why does the documentation says this and not that? Then if you just Google, the first thing that popped up was from the document. They were saying, hey, we know this is out there, but don't use it. And the reason also they were saying because this doesn't update the module that behind the scene that they are developing, but npx kind of ensures that you always get the latest update that they have done. So let me go ahead and change this. So this changes to npx create React app, and then you can give it some name. So if I ask, can I create a React app any other way? Do I need npx this thing? Is that possible to create a React app without this? Or is this the only way to create a React app? No? No what?
Speaking philosophically.
Oh yeah, okay. Other than this also. If I want to create a React app, but I don't want to use. So what does npx? When you do this, what's coming down? You see, it creates a folder structure. What we call is a boilerplate code. It kind of puts all libraries and everything inside it, right? Is there a way if I don't want all of this, can I still create React?
You just get the source code and put it in our stuff.
Not their source code, but you what's kind of same thing. You can still create a React app without using this. But what will happen is that all the configuration, the third-party configurations, and all that stuff, you will have to do it. You'll have to understand Babel, you'll have to understand Webpack, and you'll have to do everything on your own. But what the advantage of that would be that you can strip out the unnecessary stuff that React is giving it to you. Again, remember the bootstrap part. I was saying companies, what they do is it's open source. They get the bootstrap and kind of incorporate their themes. A lot of companies do the same thing with React also. It's open source. Walmart did it. They downloaded. They got their own React thing, and they came up with their own framework. I'm trying to remember. No, it's not Wallach. It's it has a. Is it Atom? What is it called? Yeah, something like that. Walmart React app. What is it called? Electrode. So Walmart Labs, they came up with their own thing, but behind the scenes, this is Electrode. This is React behind the scene. But what they did was they kind of took it out. They put in their own theme, and you can use this to.
Electrode native.
Yeah, they came up with the whole thing. So when I was at Walmart, we were kind of pushed to start using Electrode and any app there. Huh?
Is that when you quit?
Is that what?
Is that when you quit?
Well, again, there's no correlation between those two, but just no, there's no.
It just happens.
It just happens. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, if you go to a company, you're working with React. Yes, behind the scene it is React, but they might have their own kind of build on top of it. So these apps, the advantage of this within Walmart is they kind of have the same theme, same color scheme. So I don't have to worry about if I'm creating an internal website in Walmart for their data and everything. I don't have to worry about, hey, what is the color scheme? What is the logo? Everything is kind of available over here. And a lot of companies kind of like that. They kind of take it strip it apart, kind of come up with their own version of React, and then they come up with something like this. So in that case, you would you don't want like the whole boilerplate code that React gives you, similar to Bootstrap. Look at that, the build is failing. Huh.
Well, once I uninstalled that other one, the MPX is not like installed.
And npx doesn't install anything. It's already there with npm. What are you doing? Npx, create app, and then create an app. So npx is already installed with your npm.
No.
So go ahead and do that.
Because I installed the first thing of the npm one where it says Atu, and where I went to the documentation, it's like, hey, uninstall it, it's npx, and then when I've done that,
Why did you uninstall
it's
npx?
annoying because I actually had a React app. Is that what he did? Is that what he just said?
Did you uninstall npx? No, I was saying just uninstall the create React app. You did a global install, right? So npm uninstall create React app. What?
Uninstall node, re-download.
What did you uninstall?
No, I uninstalled globally because I went to the documentation.
Right. Just the create React app. That's what you uninstalled.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what's
Maybe try a
the?
different directory.
So now if you do npx create React app and then give an app hello world or something, what does it say?
I give you this big error.
npx. So that's giving you some permission issues. Why? Because you're trying to create into the GitLab AZ. Why are you trying to create in the GitLab? Change the directory.
Okay.
You're trying to
Read the errors. It's clearly saying you have permission issues.
Oh, I mean,
This is like I don't
You're
know.
trying to put your project so we can all see it.
You don't have permission to do anything and.
I do it all the time, like every day. Like when we do activities, it's like exclusively working the activities in the GitLab.
Create it in a separate folder somewhere else,
Yes,
outside.
and I've got it working right here.
why is not it saying this? Why is it not
Yeah.
permitted in my directory?
Right here.
My user file.
Okay.
I'm in my.
Bro,
It's saying it's not permitted in mine.
You know what? I wonder if
It was working before. I mean, I created the basic one on activity 15. And then you said take it out.
oh,
I
just like
uninstalled it.
I literally got the root.
Now it doesn't like it anymore.
But once you pull it again, one is my very.
So it's not good, yeah.
I mean, I just have
Saying
I've just got a merge issue. That's what I'm just like. I just branch it off and then like.
I mean, it was
Actually,
working.
keep it on master.
so.
And if I need
I closed it.
switch over to the rest.
Yeah, I guess it's, my computer's just really slow.
Yeah, and
But I
we
still don't
had
see the uninstall.
create React app.
It should be there. 'Cause I just copied it from Facebook.
No, that's what. Because if you did npm -g, then you'd actually install.
Very long trash. Dude, my work's been scheduling me. I'm like, screen here. I've been in this.
I know it's something that I installed, but I thought it was going to be easy because I did
Let me just put this header in Google and see what are you missing. Well, go ahead.
Where do you work?
I just work at a right now, server. Easy money and I get lots of time. Well, one day they schedule me.
Yeah.
I hired my boss and so we had to have like a meeting today to like discuss
create
Stop
Stop your web
Stop
development,
your
young
web
fella.
development.
You
No,
could
see, the thing
earn
is, like,
$17 an
They're,
hour.
they're basically like,
You could drive for the rest of your life.
no. They were like, dude, they were basically like, oh, like, we need to have a dialogue so we can talk about it inside.
All right, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and create a React app. Okay, everybody ready? If you haven't, I'm going to use the npx way. So npx create React app, and I'm going to call it hello world. Huh? There's no particular exercise. I'm just going from 14. The concepts, if you got the answer, that's fine. We'll go through them once we reach there. The first step to reach there is we create an app. So this is the only React app that I am going to create in class. For other activities, I already created those at home. Why? Because you see how much time, and there will be like 20 students trying to use the same network, try to create apps. So it's going to be slow. So this is the only one that I'm going to create. The rest of them, same way I have created the apps for the other exercises. So once this is done, you guys can open the README file that package creates. The instructions, they're really well written, and all of them are true. They actually work. You just have to do npm start, and then your app should be up and running. So you can see how many packages it's trying to install before it can actually go ahead and start the app. That's what I was talking about. They kind of have a lot of stuff installed. All right. Once this is installed, you will see on the screen they have nice guide. They're saying you have to cd into that folder and then just do an npm start, and your app should be running. Yeah, cd into the folder, the app that you created. All right. Then do npm start, and on your browser you will see it come up. It's running on localhost 3000. Kind of like the node mon is already installed because you don't have to do anything. You just do npm start and it automatically shows up. And you have created your React app. We'll go a few minutes, make sure everybody is at this point. All right, did yours work?
Nope. And there's
Working?
a bunch of issues like this.
You seem excited.
I wasn't expecting it to pop up all by itself. I was like, wow, it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I did
Instead of
that
having to go like,
previously when I did the npm install.
Okay.
I did that part, but now
So maybe just do the global install, and then after that come back and do npm. Try that.
it was working, I just freaked out and I was like, well, I want the updates, and I went on.
Yeah, so install it, but use the npx way to create the app. You made it move faster? Alright, here we go. Joe, Ali, you guys are good? Coming up? Eddie? Huh? Oh, check with Andrew. Look at, did you see his?
it's in the CSS.
I honestly just got to inspect it.
Oh, just go
That's
into the
funny.
CSS.
Karen, did you get it working?
In the source
Randy?
directory, .css.
Ivana? Yeah, good? Alright, anybody? Yes, Kyle.
What you want,
Editing route? What is this thing?
Oh, this is an app that I created. It's an NPX Create React app. And I called it Test App.
Red hat.
Oh.
How fast do you have your spin?
I just changed it to 1 second.
And then comes up into the NPX create app.
That's about
I also just
I'm like, here's the snake and it's back. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was doing. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just spazzing. It's looking like an actual. I mean, all I did was boom. Now it's spinning, but it will only get a rotation amount of time.
So fast. It looks like it's going so fast.
Oh my goodness,
Yes.
that is cool.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that does.
Super fast, but it's amazing. Yeah.
For the screen refresh.
And if you like,
We're having this fun. Nick just looks over our shoulders. He's like, oh, the children and their toys. It's like, you guys could have done this since the first day. You guys could have been doing this since week 1. It's okay. Like, we're easily entertained.
Yes, yeah. See, this then does the entire.
Alright, who else is not on this screen? I know 2 people are. Anybody else? What's your issue?
Guess how much this was?
Oh, really?
It's a Windows 10 issue. Yeah.
Really? How do we get past it?
Right now,
Oh, really?
but we also went through the
I mean, it's just saltwater tapping.
Okay.
It's saltwater tapping.
but I don't want to have to pull the repository down every time I do it.
Right. Wow. That's a weird one.
I suppose I could choose, but not what I want to do. So we'll keep all three.
Peppermint, what's good?
Like a ball and
Reverse the rotation.
Is mine going backwards? Oh,
And
it's
then whatever. It's just all great as So you have your app.
Oh, and then
Oh, you didn't do that. Yes. Create app.
Files did that get installed? It worked? Yeah. I think the first time you tried, there might be some, it's getting all those modules in one.
Like we aren't getting anything from like yeah, no, none of this is coming from like
All right, Joffrey, did yours work?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, is it working now?
No, I don't.
What happened?
I'm still creating it now.
So what is it saying? You're getting error?
Putting it, no, it's just, it takes forever.
Oh yeah, okay.
I just had to go back.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, see, this works. And then you open up it's that
Yeah, well, where did, was this in activities?
No, we're just creating any app.
Oh,
Yeah, you don't need activity. Create an app and then develop it.
okay. So yeah, so just the baseline what it's having.
Yeah, is it working?
Yeah, well, why it's still on
Okay, we'll give it a minute.
Because I was doing the activity, that's why I was confused, because I thought you guys were doing activity. This is just a basic React app. So I get it. So it should work as long as, I mean, if I globally install it, I mean, as long as everything's straight React app.
Yeah, it should work. Yeah, it has nothing. All right, everybody good? Working? All right, let's go ahead. I think John is having issues, but Troy is helping him out. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to see what Facebook is doing or what React is doing, right? It creates a lot of folders, what's going around. I mean, I'm always kind of curious to see what they're doing, right? They're building a lot of folder structures, so it's always a good idea, and that's what I tell everybody, be curious and go ahead and at least take a look at it once to see what's going on. Why is it creating what's going on over here, right? Again, the first thing you see the node modules folder, it tells me it's installing a lot of npm package. If you open this up, this is what I was talking about. You see this? You see the scroll bar over here? That's how small it is. It installing. You see the Babel I was talking about? Again, 2 years ago, you would have to do all this stuff. Keep going. Just keep going. We'll go until the break time for this, and so you see, so it's installing a lot of stuff. All right. Again, we need to understand that React is not a framework; it's a library, right? It's a library for building your component, and that's all it is, right? As I said, it doesn't have anything else but React boilerplate. If you use this, their create React app thing. Everything is kind of hidden from you. You will see you will take a lot of stuff for granted. You'll be like, oh yeah, I can do this. It's actually not even part of React. React is just component, and that's it, right? But they have done a lot of work, and they have made it as easy as possible for people to start using React, because of course they want people to use React, right? 15 years from now, they want the future programmers to have a miserable life and then go ahead and call this a legacy code. They want their footprint everywhere. Okay? So the first is our modules. The second is a public folder. We have done enough jQuery. We have done enough JavaScript. We have done enough Node.js. We have done our projects. Do we understand what public folder is? That's oh no, don't say that. All right. So public folder is the one that is getting exposed. Remember handlebars? All right. Same concept. All right. Did you guys open index.html? That's your starting point. Okay. You don't have to modify it. Well, you'll have to modify if you want to change the title, right? Otherwise, it will say React app. So you will have to go and change those. But you see that in your body tag, you will see this div ID root. Remember, React is again manipulating the DOM. It needs some ID. It needs to know where to go and put your content, right? As programmers who have done JavaScript and jQuery, we kind of understand that this is required. There has to be an ID. That's where React finds this and kind of sticks all its code, all right? AKA the body. Yeah. Yeah, kind of similar concept. But this is why you will see if you change the root to something else, your whole React app will fail because it's looking for this root keyword. And we'll see where it is looking for. Okay? Again, they have like good comments. Go through the comments, make sure you understand. You don't have to modify index.html, but again, as I say, please be curious. Please understand what's going on. All right? So that's your public folder with index.html. Source is what we will be changing everything, right? We'll come back to source. Again, it has a package JSON. It already builds. If you open a package JSON or a package log file, you will see all the frameworks, all the libraries that is installing. Babel is there. We talked about Webpack. If you search for Webpack, that's also there. Okay, so React kind of already installs all these libraries for you that I was talking about. Okay, so that's your package JSON. They're pretty nice about it. They have included the git ignore so that you don't make silly mistakes and you don't kind of upload everything. All this, imagine your modules going into your GitHub, right? It's going to be exciting. Somebody clones your repository with 100 frameworks with thousands of JavaScript files. Yeah, give it a try just for fun. And see how much time it takes. All right. All you have to do is go ahead and remove this line from here and then push it to your repository. All right. So git ignore is there. README file is there. That's kind of nice. Again, once you are doing your project, please go ahead and update this because this is like the general one that they are suggesting that they have. All of this works. So make sure you are updating the README file. Whoever is looking at a project, because this is the README file that will show up on your GitHub repository. Okay, and you don't want this one. Okay, I mean it's good. They are suggesting, but once you have your project, your exercises, go ahead and update this. Okay, now all the changes that we will be doing is in our source folder. So let's see how the source folder is divided. The source folder has app.css, app.js, test. All right, the first thing is, let's look at our index.js. This is the starting point of your components. All right. Lines number 1 to 5 from last class. Now we understand that import this is not part of React. It's actually part of ES6, right? Otherwise, you would be like, oh, this is all React stuff. No. All right. Now we understand what's going on. It's importing these modules, right? It doesn't have your curly bracket. This means that this is probably default. Excellent. You guys are good. So if you can open up this and see. So these two are default. This is importing your CSS file, and this is line number 4 is importing your app, and app is a component. All right. That's the starting component. That's your basic component. That's where everything else kind of springs from. Okay. Service worker. You don't have to modify service worker, but if you open up the service worker, again, I'm kind of curious, so that's why I kind of go through it and see what's going on. They have added this code. This is relatively new thing, and they have included this. So if your internet connection is poor, they have some algorithms, some data structures over there that kind of helps your website load faster. That's what Service Worker basically, TLDR version of Service Worker is, that they are caching, they are implementing something that kind of helps your website load faster in case the connection is slower. Okay? That's what Service Worker is for. Again, go through it. It's good to know what this is, but you want modifying, we don't need it. All right? If you are building your React app from scratch without this boilerplate code, you would probably not be having a Service Worker. You don't actually need it. Okay? Let's go back to our index.js. Okay? Um, Here, line number 7, that's the most important part. The virtual DOM that I was talking about, this is the one, the React DOM. Okay? React DOM.render. Again, without looking at the documentation, as programmers, as engineers, we kind of understand what's going on. It's calling a function called render. It's basically rendering your UI, right? And what it is doing, document.get element by ID. Again, basically, bottom line is it comes down to JavaScript. That's all it is, right? It's a fancy library that's built over JavaScript. Again, document.get element by ID root. That's all it is, right? So what is it doing? It's looking for the root element and goes ahead and embeds your app. This is your parent. This is going to be your top level component. Everything else would be inside your app. We'll take a look at it, but that's the starting point. If you change root to something else, this will break. So you have to go. Well, yeah, because you're looking for this root, right? Go ahead and do it. I mean, where do I change root if I want to break it? Index.html, right? So go ahead and change root to something else and. There you go. Yeah. Okay. Again, everybody, questions. Everybody understand what index.js? That's your starting point. Okay. Any questions so far? Good. All right. What is it? Logo.svg. SVG is just like a format like your PNG, JPEG, and all that stuff. SVG, they're using this thing to come up with this logo.
Feel free to replace it.
Yes, please go ahead and replace it.
Yes, I slapped out an example of what happens when you replace it. You should look at it in random channel.
All right.
Glorious. It's only 7 seconds.
Now let's go ahead and open up our app.js. Okay. In our app.js, that's our starting point for our components. Okay. Lines number 1, 2, 3, we are importing something, right? We are importing our React, we are importing our logo, and we are importing our app.css, which is our CSS file. Okay. Now, lines number 5. Line number 5 is it's creating a function called app, and then at the bottom it is returning. What is it returning? Looks like it's HTML, right? Looks like HTML, but actually this is not HTML. This is JSX, which is the syntax that Facebook has created to write this code over here. Again, you don't need JSX to use React, but it's kind of easy because they have kind of embedded into it. It's similar. Again, if you look at it, it looks like HTML, but again, if you look at the documentation, they say it's closer to JavaScript than HTML. Yes, that's their official keyword. Yeah, they say it's more closer to JavaScript than it is closer to HTML. JavaScript is it's what? XML? Oh yeah. It has XML right there. Yes. All right. So if I want to create my hello world, first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a component. So usually you will see in a lot of apps, components, anything that you are creating custom, you will see a folder called components and you put all your components inside it. So if I want to create a component called hello world, I'm going to say hello world.js, right? Look at the naming convention. Uppercase, this is how you define your component. Again, you can create it any way you like it, but that's kind of like the standard. Okay. If you look at your app.js, this is how you create. App.js is also a component, right? So I'm going to create the same component. The requirements are it should import from React, and this is the function. That's all we need. Okay. So if I want to create a new component, I'm going to say import React from React. Okay. That's all I need, and then I can go ahead and create my function, and I'm going to call it hello world, following the same naming convention as my file. I don't have to pass in just yet. And then go back to app.js. You will see that there's a return statement, return, and then you are returning something, the JSX part. And this is going to be imported, so I have to export this component. Okay, this is the basic structure of any component, and you will be using this again and again and again every time you create a component. Yes.
So are we, is this a functional component?
Yes. Yes. Right. Don't worry about those words right now. Right now, just this is the basic component. That's you're going to get there. And when we get there, you'll be like, oh my god, I shouldn't have asked.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, again. All right. That's everybody understand this. This is how you create a component with a function. Yes, there's a second way. We'll take a look at it. All right. Again, we understand that this is ES6. All right. It has nothing to do with React. This is ES6. All right. This is just a JavaScript function. Okay. Now within the return statement, this is React. This is JSX. So if you look at your app, it kind of looks like HTML. I don't know why they say JavaScript, but I'm just going to say it looks like HTML. So you can create a paragraph. Let's create a heading. Okay. So this is how you create your component. This is my component. It's done. This is how you create it. I create a folder. I create a JavaScript JS file, and I imported React, created a function, exported this function out. Okay. Now how do I call this? I go to my app.js. Your app.js is the parent. All right. Remember that your app.js is always the starting point of your components. So at the top, you will always have app, and then within app, you will have your components. So if I want to change this, let's see. Let me go ahead and remove all this garbage over here. I don't need all this stuff. I want a simple component. Okay. I don't need. You saw that I'm getting an error, so it's automatically loading it. You don't have to reload everything. It's kind of similar to Node.js if you were using this. Okay. This is okay. I need React, and then I need to import the component that I created. So I'm going to say import. It's in my folder, so let's go ahead and say /component/hello world. Okay, it's a default component, so I don't need this. I'm going to call it hello world. All right, and then within this, return, just like HTML. All right, so I don't have anything in between, so I'm going to close this. And this is how you call your component in your app. All right, just like HTML, create a tag, and your component is here. What is it? Yeah, we'll get there. We're getting there. All right. So you see it rendered over here. I can see this is my component that was loaded. If you have a second component created, it will load over here. We'll get to creating multiple components. But this is the basic React app. Again, take a look at it. Source, create a folder components. All my components are going to go over here. Right now, It's simple, it's basic. This is going to evolve pretty soon. But right now, this is how you create a basic component. Look at your hello world component. Import from React, create a function, return some HTML, which is actually JSX, not HTML. And then your app is the one that has all your components. And you go back to your app.js and then call your hello world component. All right, questions? Was everybody able to create a hello world component? Good, looks good. All right, so let's take a break. At 8 o'clock, we'll start getting into Bootstrap and a few more things. All right?
It should be updated.
There you go.
Oh, non-reactive.
What? What is that?
So Matt's having some issues with his React app
Oh.
updating.
It's unreactive.
Yeah.
It's not reactive?
Yeah. And then the joke was made. Somebody dropped the P-bomb.
So what was the logo that you said on random? Or is it on general or?
Yeah. I
General?
selected out to random.
Oh, random? It's a video.
Yes.
Okay, I see it now. That's fine.
It's still spinning.
Still spinning.
Oh.
Working? Working? Good? Working? Yours work?
Yeah.
Okay. Working.
Mine doesn't download.
You did the npm start and this is running at the you didn't stop this.
Yes.
When the right folder, right app.
Like it started out fine. Just I didn't change it. So like I slowed. So I had to slow it back. Slow it back down. This is the one that came off.
The only way to not insert documents trying to insert all of these. That's the only way. It's not, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
That's not CS.
Yeah. That's messing with things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to start.
So now that's one slow.
I got a blank screen.
You
So
could,
now let's go back. So you got, so everything's deleted. So then, is that is the, because I know I'm doing,
but it's not.
I have the capital shit, or the right to your house.
Oh, it shouldn't say it's
So you might need these points in there. I would, oh, you have it as well. Okay. Oh, there's another, and go back. There's two W's right there. That might be it. Right.
This is the.
Oh, that's, so you're still missing go back.
What do you use?
Your phone.
Well, this is good. It's not
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, you want to export the world instead of average.
Oh, yeah, got it.
So you use that function.
Okay.
I know what my problem is.
So, here.
It's right here.
What the hell?
So, you want to submit this stuff.
Well, yeah, you're gonna have to.
I did set. Oh, you do have. But Novon works if people start like that.
Yeah, this should. If I make a change over here, it should.
Yeah.
You started it.
Yeah, I didn't.
I can try.
I never saw it.
So you see, it says compile and all that stuff. It should come out.
So are you importing from?
It did have that for my When I first started up I feel like I was only 10 minutes late. Why are you punishing me like this? Was it supposed to be a... Let me take a look. Is that what it was supposed to be like an attack?
Yeah, that's what I have.
Okay, here's much more boys.
What's up? Good.
That looks right.
As soon as you hit these,
So that's she just all the way there. So that's not.
Go back to your
basically straight.
so
Well,
Saved articles already has article.
the only thing that looks different from mine is the capital. Yeah, it's the capital H. Yeah. And with that said, if it just says that that's like good practice.
Article that you use, then you
Yeah. I don't know if that has, I mean, it should matter, but ours is working and that's like the only thing.
start a function.
I mean, that's literally the only thing I can see in that is different from this.
Something was this.
it doesn't show any.
I just started to show that.
Does it mean it was
Yes,
like
they're all well, so it's kind of working.
But in the case of
Because
What? Yeah. Dude, so maybe it is. I don't know. They're like constructors almost. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's why I was like, if, I mean, it could just be that it's capital. And it was.
That's picky.
So yeah, I mean, I guess it is good practice, right? It's like required practice, yeah. Kevin! Alright, Kevin. Show me the React world. He comes in the town out here. What? He's playing them all. Shut up. Yeah. Full size nets. Hey. It's my foot, dude. Show me the stretch there. I already told you, dude. No, show me the stretch.
How do I do, like, what specific piece of yoga should I do on like 1 foot?
You like,
It's like, I'm trying to learn the ball.
this step
This instead of the switch.
Okay,
Yeah, there we go.
or like push forward, so it's your Achilles more versus like your hamstring. So like really bend into your knee almost, like this. So push forward into your knee, you should feel it more back here. Grounds versus like your hamstrings. I'm way back in yoga, dude. He used to be my instructor. Yeah. We think together. It's a mob chance, man. Probably, dude. You gotta stretch more. Just like Shane. You guys, dude, you and Shane are the exact same way.
You just have to put the semicolon there. The, I mean, the search. Just to make it simpler, try without all that, because I just did return quotes, hello world, and the word.
So on the left hand side, we have
I had gotten rid of. I got rid of all of that. It's a just this the page that's on the board. He's on the hello world. Okay, but he in my app.js, it's really short.
So see, hello div, capital H, capital D, that's two things.
And then you put the component inside the return. It's stupid. So just
They have to make sure that. And then as far as the components go, we have
and then it has to be in the caret. Like
Hey, can you slack out 16? 16, please. All right, let's go ahead and Nick slacked out the next exercise. But I'm going to show you something before you do that exercise. If you already know it, you can go ahead and get started. So this is the Hello Dev one. I already have this project, so I'm going to create a component, just like just like I did previously. Components. Okay, and then I'm going to create my Hello Dev component. Okay. Same thing. I need my I need to import React. Okay. Just as this before, and then I need to create a function which I'm going to call hello dev. Don't need any parameters yet, and then I'm going to export default hello dev. Okay, same thing as we did in the hello world one, right? I'm going to go ahead and modify app.js so that it uses the component that I need. Let's go ahead and remove this. All right, so go ahead and import my component hello dev. It's a default, so I don't need this. Okay. Next, I'm going to show my hello dev here. So let me go ahead and complete this so that I don't have to come back to this one. Okay, this should compile empty because I don't have anything right now. So in my function, I need to return JSX. So let's go ahead and return this. All right, so we are back to hello world. It's 16, yeah. But before you begin 16, I'm showing you something that JSX works on. Okay, so now when you're writing JSX, there has to be just one parent. Okay, what does this mean? That anything that you start with when you're returning should only have one parent. It cannot have two divs or basically sibling. You cannot have this thing in JSX. You see these two are siblings. I have two divs over here. It doesn't matter. It has to be one outer parent and everything should be inside it. Okay, for example, if I have this div and I want to create a h1, this is all good because this is inside let's say I'm a header. Okay, so this shows up. I want another heading, so I can say h2. I am second header. Okay, I can have these components. That's all good. I can have a list. I'll create a list, but the point The point over here is, if you see, this is the parent HTML tag. You can only have one parent HTML tag. That's it. You cannot have another one after this one. You cannot have another div or h1. It doesn't matter. Okay, you cannot have these two are now siblings. You see, they are on the same level. These are siblings. You cannot have siblings when you're returning from your JSX. You can only have one parent component, and everything goes inside that. All right, you'll see it will give you an error saying there's a parsing error and all that stuff. So every time you're creating a JSX, it should be wrapped around one parent. You cannot have multiple HTML tags as siblings. Is that clear? Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay? Yeah, within that you can have anything you want. That's okay, but there should be one parent. Now there's a way to get around it, but it's a little bit advanced. We won't go into that. Again, you see the concept. Why is this? Remember, we are breaking down into smaller components, and kind of React is kind of forcing us to make sure that this has just one component. That's why it is. Okay. Within that, you can have whatever HTML or whatever JSX you want. Let's suppose you create a list. I can have a couple of LIs.
As long as it's own bit, because I tried to just jam them next to each other.
Right, because it's a sibling. Jamming next to each other means they both are siblings. That's what I was saying. You cannot have siblings. You cannot have anything at the same level. At the same level, you can only have a parent. Only children. Right? Okay, so you can go ahead and create your unordered list and everything. That's the exercise for Hello Dev. And this was the main point from there was it has to be wrapped up inside one parent. Everybody good? So
Then you have multiple bits.
no, that's what I'm saying. This is so the div is okay. The point over here it has to be a parent HTML tag. That's the right word. This could be a p tag. It doesn't matter what it is, but it has to be just one.
Okay.
Just one parent.
Okay.
Yes.
In the instructions it says stop the web server if it's already running, but how do we know if it's already running and how do we stop it?
Control C.
Okay.
This is running. And the reason they are saying is the assumption is you don't have your auto save on, so you have to save it and then start it. That's what they're saying. But if you see, I'm just making changes. I don't have to change anything. It auto reloads everything. So you won't have to. In this case, you don't have to stop and start anything. It's just the case if it's not rendering properly or it's not refreshing, then go ahead and do it. I don't see any issue when I'm doing it. Yes.
So, I mean, because in getting into like the different components, so I mean, you wouldn't really have multiple functions in a component, right? You
Just one function. Yes.
yeah. So
Yes.
if you were breaking it out, you'd have a lot. That's why you have a lot of different JS.
Right. If I was breaking this out, I wouldn't have this. This would be a separate component. Yes. You're thinking the right direction. We'll get there. But yeah, you would have a separate component for that.
That's what they want to do.
That's what.
Break everything out. So
Yeah.
Want you to
Yes. All right. Kyle, you had a question? No. Good. Yes. You mean create the React app? Yes. Yes. Or you can just use your hello world one and do it. But you have to do it. Yeah. You have to.
Also, if I mean, I have 16, so I have to
Well, you have yes. For every exercise, you have to create a new React app, and that's what I was saying. I already did it yesterday at home because it takes time. I don't want to spend this, so I already have those. The main template is already created with different names, but yes, you guys are solving it. You have to create a new React app every single time. Yes, or you can create one and then just keep modifying the same one. Up to you. Yeah, within the same name, you can. Yeah. Okay, it's up to you guys. All right. Any other questions before we begin? Yes.
So when you're creating components, is it better practice to have them be
It's JSX an extension.
JSX is not an extension. You just put JSX?
Has the React.
Yeah.
Has the React logo.
Oh, really? Okay. I haven't tried. That's news to me. I have not tried it.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna check this. JS.
That's interesting.
File
From what I've seen, it's a JS file. Yeah, I didn't know they
I
had
mean,
it.
I'm sure it's all the same. But
Yeah, it might be your Visual Studio kind of recognizes it and formats it nicely.
Yeah.
But all of this is going to be a JS. I'll look into it. Yeah, I haven't tried it.
It's faster.
What is it?
It's faster.
It's faster?
Like,
Interesting. I'll take a look.
I'm sure React's just like, yeah.
Hold on, yes.
If it's not responding.
What is it?
So you're active and it's not responding, so it's not. How would you?
Control C? Yeah. And what do you mean? Yeah, Control C. Or hit this delete button.
Oh, wow.
If nothing is responding, you'll have to shut down your Visual Studio. Yes.
So you don't have to use JSX, right?
Yeah, you don't have to use JSX. Yeah,
Right.
but it's embedded in so much. Basically, everybody uses it.
Who got a second?
Yeah, you don't have to use JSX. And if you look at the documentation, they will guide you through it. But in the exercises and everything, I don't see why we shouldn't be using it. It's kind of easier, familiar syntax. It's just better to use it. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Everybody good? This is running. All right. So the next one, the next exercise is using Bootstrap. I think Blair was saying, right? Okay. Before I begin the Bootstrap, so let's go ahead and I have created this project, Bootstrap demo, same template. Okay. If I run this, it will take me to my that stock application. CD Bootstrap demo. So this shows that I have, there's no other code other than just running npx create React app. Oops, what happened? Npm start. That's what I was missing. Again, the documentation for React is really good. If I'm really being honest, I'm just, in this class we are sitting, I'm just going through the documentation. And on Saturday also, they have a whole list of tutorials. Basically, I'm just repeating what they have in the documentation and showing you guys. So basically, it means you can, well, okay, I wouldn't say it because it's always been difficult for me as well to go and look at the documentation. Somebody explains, it's better. Somehow it makes sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good thing. So this is the app. Now I want to include Bootstrap. Now if I'm looking at this folder structure, you see this is the structure we went. I want to include Bootstrap CSS in my code. Which file? Where do I go and add that? That's the first question. What? For Bootstrap? It's a CSS file.
Don't we just like
Don't worry, you
don't
can
we just
do
like
it. They
toss in
have
the CDN link?
Yeah. What? Just
So
so
in like the index.
just include it in your index.html.
Just like
What's the other way? So do a npm install
Bootstrap.
Bootstrap what? It's just Bootstrap?
Just Bootstrap.
Not acknowledging the answer that I found for you.
That's the only time I've ever seen that on Stack Overflow.
Oh, okay, I see what this is. All right. So so the other way that Blair is saying this is, remember when we started Bootstrap, I said that you can download the whole folder. What this is, this will put everything inside it, so it's embedded in your a part of your project. Yeah. So that's what it is. Or if I want to use CDN, right? And then Michael correctly said we will go ahead and include in our index.html file. Exactly. All right. Everybody understand this? If I want to include Bootstrap, it has to be index.html, same as we have been doing before. So go ahead. Let's go ahead and find our CDN link, and then include that in our file. Where's the CDN? Or use the npm package as Blair is suggesting.
When you import that file,
Uh huh.
it's like you're on top of the world.
Import what?
When you import the bootstrap file after downloading the package,
Uh huh.
it's
Oh.
the I'm a real developer. It's called me.
All right. So if you want to feel like a real developer, then. All right. Where's my? Forgot what was I trying to do. All right. So I found. Let's go ahead and include our Bootstrap link, like not software engineers. I just messing with you. Yeah, as I'm going to import like not a React developer, I'm going to include my CSS over here. Okay, and that's all you should be needing. All right. Now we can go ahead and write our component, use the same classes. The syntax is a little bit different, just like a word difference. So I'm going to show you the class names over here. So this is my folder I included in my index.html. I'm going to go ahead and create my components or component. All right. Let's call it hello bootstrap bootstrap.js. Okay. If I create JSX, does it auto import something? Like, does it give me a template, or is it an empty file?
It's an empty file.
Oh.
It just has a download it.
Okay. Speed it up. All right. Right, that's what I was saying. If it is, then it's worth it. All right, so for now we will create function hello bootstrap. All right, I'm creating my component bootstrap. Don't need the parameters for now. What else? Return. Okay, I need to return some JSX. Export default. Hello bootstrap. Okay, anything else from here? That should be. Then we'll come back and write it. Well, let's go ahead and put something so that stops completing. I'm going to put an empty div tag. Okay. Now I need to update my app.js, right? Include this component. Let's see, you don't need this. Let's go ahead and delete this. Great, you just deleted the div tag. Okay. So my return is empty now. App.js, let's go ahead and import ./component/world default, so I don't need the parentheses here. This should do it. And then in my return, I'm going to call my hello bootstrap. Okay, this should work. Empty string showed up. Empty string. Okay. Now let's go ahead and let's go back to a Bootstrap web page and use the CSS classes that I have. Now in your HTML, what do you have to do if I want to use a CSS class? Class, right? Class, and then give the class name container. Let's start with this. Okay. In JSX, it's called class name. Same thing, but again, it's not actually HTML. It's JSX. It's from React. So they have come up with, if you want to declare a class, a CSS class, the keyword, the attribute that you have to put over there is called class name. Okay. So create a class name. Let's go ahead and include some Jumbotron. All right. So class name. Let's say Jumbotron. Okay. Include some headings. Okay. Let's see. Bootstrap demo. Jumbotron, class name. Let's add a p tag. Jumbotron. Alright, is it? Okay, it is loading. Can you guys see it? The color is kind of fading, but there is Jumbotron around there. What else? Let's create a button. Div class name. Okay, tell me the class names. BTN dash danger. BTN space. Okay, thank you. And then danger button. Oh, there it is. Okay, so again, this every single class, every single CSS class that is in Bootstrap, you can go ahead and use those classes over there, and this is how you would incorporate Bootstrap in your. Okay. All right. Any questions? Everybody, you guys haven't forgotten Bootstrap, right? What is Bootstrap? Okay. All right. Let's do the next exercise. Then you guys go ahead and continue this. Let's see what the next exercise says. So you have to create a it's a readme. Does it say? Here's what I want you guys to do. Look at the bonus part. Do the bonus part. I mean, if you have already done this part, at least you guys understand, that's okay. Do the bonus part. This is the starting point. So the bonus says, instead of having all your Bootstrap code inside a single component, create 3 separate components: navbar, jumbotron, and card. Really important. Give it a try, and then I will solve this exercise. So now we have looked at creating one component. You have to create 3 components and bring all of them in this page. 3 different components: navbar, jumbotron, and card. Again, copy the code for navbar. You don't have to change anything. Just copy the code. The important point over here is all of those 3 should be in a separate component. Just copy paste the navbar code from Bootstrap. That's okay. Copy the jumbotron code. Copy the card. That's not important. The important is create 3 components and then call those components. Kind of show it over here. That's what I will say. All right. Then I'll go ahead and solve this and show you guys if you guys don't get there. I would say start with jumbotron. That's the easiest one, and then do the navbar. So basically, from a visual perspective, your page should have a navbar on the top. Okay. Then a jumbotron, navbar, and then it should have a card. This is how your page should render. Okay, and all of these are going to be in a separate component files. So give this a try and see how this comes out. Different, yep. Each one of this is a separate component. Yes.
I don't know if you don't want to tell me because you don't want to give me the answer, but like,
Yes.
but just we have this. You only say return once in the app.js file, right? Like so, even if you're
Correct.
returning three components, you just say return less than.
Yep. Yeah, there's only going to be one return. Right? And look back how you're calling this component. It's basically an HTML tag, right? So you can keep adding more components over. But your return, yes, this is a syntax. There's no more returns. Everything is between the returns.
And do you usually use the title case for the
Yes.
component?
Yes. Bootstrap, bootstrap 4. Okay. Let's see. Components. Okay. So when you go to Bootstrap, I'm just saying you can just use what they have over here. Of course, class, this is not going to work, so I have to change that. Card. Let's look at card. Okay. This is Jumbotron. JSX requires every closing tag. So make sure there's a closing tag or like a slash this thing. Anybody created the Jumbotron?
Yeah.
Jumbotron, what's the second one you guys did? Navbar?
Yeah.
Navbar. So you have both and shows up?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Still need to go put that in my hand.
Oh, okay. Alright, so let me go ahead and create my Jumbotron 2. So Jumbotron.js. Okay. Import React from React. Again, you don't have to call this. You guys know this is default. I can call it R and it will still work because this is a default. So we can give any name you want. Destroy your code.
Mark Zuckerberg will kick down the door.
How did you call React? Or you can call it. It will still work.
Shots fired.
Some return. Export Jumbotron. Export default. Okay. So this is just creating the the component. Jumbotron. Okay, and then you can just go ahead and copy. There's no copy button here. Where's my copy button? All right. Ooh. So I have to change class to class name. So let's do this. There's this class with class name. Okay. Oops. So class changed to class name. Okay, and it's missing this thing, so I can put a slash. That should make JSX happy now. There's no HR end, is there? What does it like? Let's see. Is it HR? So I have one div. Oops. I have my H1. What is it missing? Oh, it's actually looking for this. Like this. Wow. All right. Again. This. HR requires valid. It's okay. I don't need HR. So I'm going to remove this. Let's move this back. Again, this is just my linter complaining but I cannot bear those green squigglies. It's much better. Okay, so I have my Jumbotron copy pasted, modified so that JSX likes it. Alright. So let's go ahead and I'm going to import this in my app.js. So I don't need this. So let's go ahead. Let's keep this. So if I want to include another component, just like I need to import first. So import Jumbotron from components slash. Now I can go ahead and use Jumbotron here. Alright, you guys see the error?
Because you can't have siblings, Daniel.
Excellent.
No siblings.
So let's go ahead
Only
and
child.
oops. Let's go ahead and create our
So
parent.
you just wrap it in a div. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's what I did too. I just was like, okay, this seems kind of hacky, but okay.
No, that's
That's it.
yeah.
Really?
Usually you might have like a parent component and then within it, but right now we don't have a parent component. Over here you can even include the container, the thing, so that it becomes container. Okay, so I have my hello bootstrap, this one, and then this one. This is how you can add multiple components to your app. I don't need this one, so I'm going to remove this. And I'm just going to delete this. You know what? I should have done this in the next one, but that's okay. Right, you guys saw what I did? If you want multiple components in your app. So now my structure is basically app. Within app, I have Jumbotron. And then I'm going to have nav bar and then card. I'm going to move nav bar up and switch places. But that's how you would do it. So let's go ahead and create one more. Nav bar.js. I don't need this. Okay. Import React React function navbar, don't need this. Return something. Export default navbar. Okay. Let's copy the nav. Do I need to make my changes in navbar? Yeah, anybody solve that one? I should just a copy paste should work. But there's a nav. Oh, it doesn't recognize nav.
I have just nav actually.
Okay, so nav is the outer parent, so that's why I was asking. Let's see. What is it? Oh, okay. Let me do class with class. Yeah. Oh, you were typing.
Control D, but it won't do like a couple of them. Yeah. You know, seeing that really.
Bad, Daniel. I'm not that bad.
This is good. That's it. All right. Okay. And oh, it doesn't recognize nav. So nav does have. Which one is it, Andrew? Line input. Okay. So where does this end? Oh, I see. So it
Yep, right there.
this thing. Okay. No complaints. href. That's okay. These are okay. I'm not going to worry about these. Okay. So I just copy pasted, fixed few things so that um, JSX likes it. This should be good. So now I have to do is import this. So this should, again, the order doesn't matter. Just my preference. Navbar, because navbar comes first. I'm going to navbar, jumbotron. This should come first. So I'm going to use navbar, and let's go back here, and there's my navbar. Oops. Okay. You guys see, and then the card component, you can do the exact same thing and include card. You can include multiple components. So this is how these components come together. All right, you're going to have different components in your app. You are basically again going to create a JSX, and depending on where you want these components, that's where you will put it. Okay. Any questions? Everybody got it? Yes.
Can you export components into other components? If you have this bootstrap component and have the navbar
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
and just have that.
Why not? Because app is also a component, right? You can do embedded nested components, basically. Nested components, that's what you're saying, right? Yeah. You will see because the page, this bigger component might have smaller components, and they are not required in app.js because that's not where they are required. They're required in a different one. So you can have nested components. Yeah. Make as many nested as you want. All right. All right. Let's look at. All right. Any other questions before we proceed?
Do they have to be separate files, or could you export?
No, you can put everything in one file. Yeah, but don't do it. But yes, you can. Again, it's you can write the whole component in just one file. Yeah, and that kind of defeats the purpose of React, but yeah. All right. Let's look at JSX a little bit more, and then the last one would be CSS. All right. So we saw how we. Oh, I can use the same one actually. So let me use the same example and show you guys what else you can do with our JSX. So I'm going to make changes to our Jumbotron, add few other stuff as soon as it comes up. All right. All right, so JSX, we saw class names. Remember handlebars? Same thing over here. Instead of double curly braces, it uses single curly braces. Okay, but the concept is still, you can pass in variables, strings, numbers within JSX. Okay, what does this mean? Let's go ahead and you can create a h2 element and all right, you guys remember the curly brackets? Again, same concept as handlebars. All right, I'm passing in a variable called name, and then you are going to set that variable somewhere, and that would be, you can create it outside the function. So this is like it is within this file, but it's a variable that should be declared on the top. I'm not going to change that, so I'm going to create a variable. And then you will see my component come up over here, right? Again, same concept as handlebars. So you can pass in variable names and it's going to replace with some value. This is a very basic example, but these variables are going to come from different files. We will come to that, but basically it's still the same concept. You can use variables, numbers, string. You can pass in a number. Let's suppose I have two numbers. Then you can go ahead and add them as well. Okay. Say h2 two numbers, and then you can pass in num1 plus num2. So you can basically do some kind of operations also in this. Oops, num1 plus 2. Okay, so you see I'm doing same as handlebars. I can do operations, addition, all kind of operations. It's a variable. JSX kind of recognizes these curly brackets, and it will go and look for the variable if it is a variable, and then evaluate according to whatever the value is. Okay. Let's see what else. This is necessary, but let me type this one out also. It doesn't have to be necessary a variable. It could be any JavaScript statement also. For example, remember our random generator thing that we used to do a lot. So like math.for, and then put in something math.random, right? This thing multiplied by something. Let's see. Random. So you can basically do similar operations and all that stuff within your JSX. Okay, and you see how quickly this is updating. We'll come back and we'll see that only the values are going to get updated, but these curly brackets are important. These are the ones that are evaluating your statement. Could be a string, number, operations, anything. It will go ahead as long as they're in curly brackets. JSX knows that it needs to go ahead and kind of do some function. Do just more than print this out. It has to look for variables or numbers or do some kind of operations. Okay, so same as handlebars. In this case, in React, these are single curly braces. Okay, any questions? See how quickly you guys understood because you guys did handlebars. See how easy it is.
So
Yes.
if we wanted to generate a whole bunch of cards off of like an array of objects with the information that we have for those cards, how would we loop through them
Curly braces, right? For each
and just
or
write
something.
and write the whole?
Yeah. Yep. We'll take a look at it and see how more complicated it is.
But yeah, how do you?
Yeah. What is it? Input the component.
Yeah, if you write a component that does that part.
Right.
And put that in there.
Over here in the for each. So you need some kind of array first, right? So you are going to loop through an array, and then within the array, same thing, but it has to be in this, and then you do a for each dot array dot for each, right? And then it has to pass in a callback function, right? Within that you can put your component. Give this a try and see. Yeah. Well, if that doesn't work, we'll come to it. We'll figure that out. But it is possible, and it's a kind of common thing.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I'm just
Yeah, try it, but again, this is your. What I think first thing is it has to be in this because you're using kind of a for each, and for each JSA doesn't know for each until it is some. You see the math.for is a function or JavaScript, right? But JSA kind of goes ahead and recognizes it. If I remove these two, then it's going to freak out and be like, oh, I don't know what you're trying to say. Okay, so I don't see why this shouldn't work. It's any JavaScript function that should work. Okay, good question. Any other questions? Let's see. All right, any other thing? Everybody kind of understand what JSS variables are. We're going to look into it and see how further they are used. Alright, so let's go ahead and,
One question.
yes.
Like when you, this is the other one though with the nav bar, because like how did when I added the nav bar with just the same bootstrap
Yeah.
and then changed the class name,
Yes.
it kept giving me the error
Yes.
of the
HR.
bootstrap attribute is not valid. Something.
Change it to a navigable.
Change it to what?
There's like an error that you get where it's referencing like a placeholder href.
Oh yeah, it's not a error, it's your linter. Remember we installed linter from our project, so it's giving you a warning saying if you change your www.google.com it will go away.
Okay.
That's what it's giving a warning. It shouldn't be a hash, but
Oh, that
right
is the
now,
one.
yeah. So it should be like a green underscore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a linter. All right, any other questions? JSX variables, good. Let's do the next exercise. This is number 20. So you just need to, same thing that I showed you, do a name, number, make sure, or you can just do this, make sure you understand, and it's working for you. The other interesting is, I mean, you see by default, kind of Facebook React has this function. You can convert it into the ES6 arrow function. That should also work. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, it kind of looks ugly on this case. I tried it, but I was like, I don't really like it. So if I change this to, what do you have to do? Const jumbotron, right? Empty arrow. Oh no, this was fine. Oops. Right? Is it the other way? No, it has to be. This is. Okay, so this also works. I mean, but if you see the documentation, for the function name, for the components, they are still following the ES5. But within that, if you're creating a new function, then yes, that's where you can use your arrow function. Let me change this back and then. So for example, if I have another function here, const, let's say print name is equal to pass in the name, okay, and this, if I do this, this should just take a name and send the name back. Okay, everybody understand? Line number 7 is a function, print name. You pass in a name and just returns the same thing. Or you can add something, so that would be nice. So that you guys can see. Okay, and then you can call this function somewhere in your JSX also. Let's create another h3. All right, and since it's a JavaScript thing, so I need to put in parentheses, curly braces, and then call my function print name, pass in okay, so this shows up. So basically this, you can create functions, and then you can create call those functions as you would in your JavaScript, right? It just has to be wrapped in a curly bracket so that JSX kind of recognizes it. Okay, so I created a function, arrow function, and then I'm calling it on line number 18, just like you would call a function. The definition is on line number 7. All right, one parameter, single line, so I don't need parentheses, I don't need curly brackets. This will auto return this string.
You're all good names.
When my first day at work, the first day, she was talking to someone else, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I see Blaine over there." Of course you forget. My name's Blair. Like within an hour or two, you're like, "Yeah, I think Blaine will do it." Really, it's not Blaine. Although I have to say, I prefer Blaine to like whatever.
What if there's a typo that happens on your certificate? It says Blake.
Do you need my money back?
That would be funny.
No, Claire, just right click, inspect element.
That's a good one.
HTML, change the JSX, CSS.
Yeah, there you go. That's all you have to do. Inspect element, take a screenshot. There you go.
Have you ever done that for someone and they think that it's they changed the website that other people can see it? So where you know it's maybe just an image or something different. I guess I don't know. I know some people who are just computer illiterate. They're like,
You broke the Google.
yeah, it's like.
Oh, he didn't. Which activity are you guys on? Straw.
Steal this car.
All right, so we are on exercise number 20. You guys are working on 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did it. 20.
20.
Working on the same file.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was suggesting to Ivana, that otherwise you'll have to create multiple. I couldn't bear that because I was like, no, it's a CSS demo. I need my file to be a CSS demo, so I went ahead and created it.
It takes so long.
Yeah.
Name variable twice. Use the name variable inside the print name.
Yeah, you can do that too.
I'm trying. I can't.
What is it saying?
It's saying name is object.
Name is object. I wonder if if it's creating a conflict between this and this.
I got it.
Let's see.
My name.
What do I have in my golden bag of holding?
Oh.
Yeah, it's working. Oh no, this is just everything inside is just JavaScript now. You can, yeah. you only need this. Inside is just JavaScript, like how you do it. Yeah, no more curly braces. JSX will recognize it.
Yeah, I thought we had to like.
Oh, no.
There are instances where you use double curly braces, but it's not.
Yeah, it's a different one.
I see why every of those guys would just like use React. Like
Who?
whenever there was issues with handlebars, they would just say do it in React, and now I
Yeah.
understand why.
Well, again, that's what I say. If we don't introduce those things, see how much easier now you guys. Oh yeah, I know how what it works, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
See, I use the bars too.
I was like, you know, the beef for me to handle.
What is it? What was that?
I was talking to Jay at the vending machine about how much I needed handlebars.
I was like, I was really trying to like React until you introduced handlebars, and he's like, it's
And
not
I'm like, it's not
handlebars.
handlebars.
It's not handlebars, but I was saying the concept
And
is
then he's
still the
yelling
same.
about partials over here. And components. I was
Yeah.
like, see, you can't yell about me.
Nope. I told you when I said handlebars, the same concept has been carried over in every other major framework library.
You're, yes,
All right. Any questions on JSX variables? Everybody got it working?
Yes.
Working for you guys? Kellen, Jeff? All good? Okay. What's is it working?
I'm so far behind. I have no idea.
Which exercise are you
I'm just trying to do it all.
Okay. Let's try this one, the last one, the CSS one. All right. All right. Let's look at the last exercise. So we are using Bootstrap for our CSS, right? But there will be a case where you will have your custom CSS. You want to write your own CSS versus using anything else. React follows the same pattern. What it does is it kind of isolates the CSS. Remember in our first project and first classes, we had just one giant CSS that was being referred. Since we have different components, we can break our CSS into multiple CSS. Okay, and each component will have their own CSS. Right? Again, this is how I like to do my components is I create folders within even my components, right? And then my components will have a JavaScript file and a CSS file, and then a test, just like this, if there's a test. Okay, CSS, JS, all go in one folder. For example, I'm going to create a new component called header. So instead of creating that, I'm going to create, this is how I would always begin my components. The first one would be header.js, and then the second would be header.css, and then header.test.js once we get to the test part, right? You see, it's the same pattern that React is following. The app has the same thing, app.css, app.js, app.test.js, right? At the very least, this is what I would recommend. Again, you don't need to create a folder. You can put everything in just one giant folder. But I like to separate all of these into like different components, different folders. So that's why I create my folder structure based on my components. Right? So if I have a header component, I have a header folder. Within the header folder, I have my CSS and my header.js. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So let's go ahead and write our header component, import on CSS, import React from React. Okay, and then function header, don't need anything, return, and then export default header. Okay, so I create a new component, and in this component go ahead and put some let's go ahead and use our header tag, header. Okay, create h1, this is header, And then I'm going to include a class name, but this is custom. This is not Bootstrap. I'm going to create my own class called header. Okay. Now where does this go? This goes in my header.css. So just create any CSS header. Okay, let's give it a background. Background yellow. Okay, let's start with this. Now I need to import the CSS, right? It's not going to work unless I do import because I already have the CSS. The good part is you don't have to put any export and import in .css because there's no keyword in CSS, right? It doesn't recognize import and export. Same as we imported our Bootstrap CDN file, we can do it same thing. It's going to be header.css. Don't need any of these. It's just the CSS file. Okay. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to go ahead and include this in my app.js. Import dot slash component slash header slash header. Let's call it header. Okay, let's go ahead and put this and see if this worked. Okay, and there is my header with my CSS over here. Yes, Dante. Can you what? Comment it out. This is how you do it. Curly brackets. So comment is again part of JavaScript, right? So you have to embed it into curly brackets and then put a comment. Good question though. Yes. Right. And the easiest way to find something new is use the shortcut key on your computer. It's Command / for on Mac. So it will automatically find the right way to comment it, and then it will give you. Yes.
This might be a dumb question. Can you just remind me why it's class name instead of class?
This is the syntax for JSX. Remember, this everything is JSX, and so they came up with this syntax. Why? I'm not sure, but instead of, I think they're trying to differentiate between your HTML and JSX, so they came up with a syntax where if you want to include a CSS class name, it has to be class name just like this.
Yeah, that's it. It's coming back to me. It's on free code camps, like the differences between JSX and HTML.
Yes, so that's the difference. Yeah. Yes.
So with the CSS file, if you are using one for each component, if you were to use one across multiple components.
So what I would do is I would create a new folder called common, and I would put my common CSS over there. That's how I do
They're
it.
kind of like feature purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, but right.
Where you have the same kind of button you want. Yeah.
Right. But again, be careful when you're doing it. The component part is that this is my one component. I'm using a button, right? It might work over here, and then you want consistency. The same button might work over here. But if you're reusing it, make sure if you're using the same button, if you change anything over here, it's going to update every single button. If you're using like a common CSS and you're doing
Yeah,
it.
like
That's
no parts you want to keep.
right. Yes.
So you want to import the header.js, but why didn't you want to do the header.css? Oh, so it's there.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, not.
It's just not on the actual index.
Right. Why not? Because I don't need it over there.
Okay.
I need it over here, right?
So
Because
imports there and then because you import it there.
oh yes, I imported my header.js and it shows up over here. Again, this is what the flow is. It comes to app. It just needs this, and for this I need this import, and within it can do anything. It doesn't care. Just like
the
that.
app.css browser.
Oh yeah, you don't need it. Yep. There's so here's another way to write CSS. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's there, so I'm going to show it. Styles, yeah. I hear that.
No, you should never.
Don't do it, but I'm still going to show it. So if you want, this is called inline CSS. Remember, we had inline CSS in our HTML. Never do it.
I remember distinctly.
Yes.
Don't do it.
Don't
do it.
Yes. So if you see, it's basically a variable. You can call it anything you want, but it's a style, so I'm calling it style. And within that, it's an object. An object has properties and all that stuff. So background green. Okay. Again, this is an object, so all the properties of an object kind of goes. You have to write it just like an object. Okay, and then you can include this in your JSX. Now, here's the question. This is a variable, right? JavaScript variable, an object, right? I know. I mean, to us, if you read it, it's a CSS, but it's basically a JavaScript. Now, how would I use it over here? Is it still going to be a class name if I want to use this style? If you had to take a guess. Yes, excellent. So style attribute and then brackets, right? And then basically it's a variable, so I'm saying style dot edit. Okay, so this is how you would do it. Again, don't do it.
Don't do it.
But this is
Just don't do it.
It's called inline styling.
Don't do it. You'll hurt yourself.
Yes.
You'll
All right.
strain something.
Any questions on the separating? This is how you separate. We'll look at a few more examples. But everybody understand? So how do you guys feel about React? You guys are getting it?
I feel like I've slapped an appropriate meme out.
I'm in love.
Okay, that's good. Again, I want you guys to appreciate that all the build up for past 18 weeks, if this was given to you before, you will not understand. I'm really happy you guys like it, but trust me, if this was introduced to you before, you would be like lost. I don't know what this is.
Heck, I'm lost.
What is it?
Like, even though we didn't really use handlebars,
Yes.
it kind of made it make more sense.
Right. It makes it easier because you have done something. All right. So there's a last exercise for this CSS. Go ahead. This is number 22. All right. Work on 22, but this is the end. We completed. You can go. This was the last exercise. Saturday, we're going to go into a little bit more deeper concepts, properties and components. How do you pass stuff? Blair mentioned functional versus class components. We're going to take a look at. Yes. Soon, as soon as Saturday. Yeah, that's it. All right. So I'll be here on Saturday. We'll see you guys on Saturday.
I'm gonna be watching so many tutorials tomorrow. Yeah, I literally love doing it. I'm not working. It's just.
What is